Shock the system. Bulletcast for life.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is a 4-time Emmy Award winner. He's the host of Deco Drive, the ring announcer for Blueprint Wrestling, and he is the favorite son from Pickering, Ontario, Canada, CVV Chris Van Vliet. How's it going, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for making this happen, as you like to say to the guys you interview.
Yeah, I realize I've been saying that far too often. Thanks for making this happen.
Hey.
But yeah.
You got to do what you got to do. Repping your merch, CVV. You want to plug that real quick?
It's in case I forget what my name is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
CVV.
There you go. I love the RVD interview, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That was a really fun one. Yeah, so you can buy my shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees or on my website, chrisvanvliet.tv.
Absolutely. All right, so let's just jump into when you started watching wrestling. You started watching about 1998, 1999, if I'm right.
That's when I really got into it.
Okay.
That's when I was like, this is something I want to watch every single week. But my first memory is like going to Grandma and Grandpa's house when I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. That was mid to late 80s. So Hogan and Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. And I was also like blown away by the kind of silly characters at the time too. Like I remember liking Repo Man like for some reason and Coco Beware, like all these great characters. But I was only allowed to watch it at Grandma and Grandpa's house. So when I went home, my parents were, not about wrestling. And then, with the friends that I had in high school, 98, 99, that was the heart of the Attitude Era, the heart of the Monday Night Wars. And that's when I really got into it. And my parents still, hated this big time. I remember my dad would, come down the stairs. I'd watch it in the basement, of course, and I'd do the last channel trick where you'd have another channel, of something that was safe and not wrestling.
Of course.
So watching wrestling, and if I heard my dad coming down the stairs, I would quickly hit the last channel button and watch something else because my parents just did not like it at all.
Yeah, I remember living with my uncle in Florida and being grounded and doing that many a time. many a time.
We all know that trick, yeah.
Yeah, so, when you were going to school, did you have guys at your school that were strictly WCW and strictly WWF, and where were you? I was a
WWE person or WWF person for sure, and all my friends were as well. I'm going to be honest, in 98, 99 when I was watching, I didn't really know a ton about WCW, and I didn't really get it because WWE to me was just such a bigger thing, or I guess WWF at the time was just such a bigger brand. And then as I got into wrestling more and more, I just wanted to have as much of it as I could. And that's when Nitro was 3 hours. So I would watch the cruiserweights from 8 till 9. I'd watch Raw from 9 to 11. And I would switch back between commercial breaks. Raw then re-aired. I was from Toronto. I'm from Toronto. It would re-air the next day. So I'd watch it again from 4 to 6. Then I would watch Thunder and ECW and SmackDown and Metal and Jacked and Sunday Night Heat. I would watch it all. I just wanted to have as much wrestling as I could, and I would record it on VHS, and I could watch it again.
Yeah, you see, I was born in '96, so I didn't get to experience that because
Sure.
I grew up during the Ruthless Aggression, then PG era of WWE, and the most wrestling I got was Raw and SmackDown until I discovered TNA in the mid-2000s. So, from what I hear from people talking about, it sounds like an amazing time to be a fan.
It was, and it was a different era. You're obviously also growing up in the era when you had, DVRs, and you didn't need to watch things live. When I was growing up, when I was in high school, if you missed Raw that night, the only way you could possibly watch it again is if you taped it on a VHS or one of your friends taped it on a VHS.
Tape trading.
Exactly, and I didn't do a ton of tape trading, but I certainly had, I had a bunch of tapes. I was a backyard wrestler in high school, and I had a bunch of VHS tapes of my backyard wrestling. So
Chris Sharp.
You've done your research.
Hey, man.
You've done your research, Phil. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for. All right, so let's talk about who were some of your favorite wrestlers growing up.
Hands down, it was The Rock.
Okay.
I was so blown away by everything he did, especially his personality. And those are the formidable years for me, 16, 17 years old. A lot of what happens when you're 16, 17 years old kind of shapes the rest of your, adult life. I just love the way The Rock carried himself with his charisma and his energy and his personality. And I would walk around high school raising the people's eyebrow and yelling, "It doesn't matter," at people all the time because that's who I loved. But I also loved like some of the other like smaller characters. Like I loved Sean Stasiak. I was like
Really?
blown away by the character he had in WCW, Sean the Star Stasiak, where he would sign an autograph and leave it on the person's chest after he beat them. And I was like, what a great gimmick. Like, I want to have a gimmick like that when I become a pro wrestler. And then he went to WWE after, WCW got bought. And I'm like, you completely ruined Sean Stasiak. Turned him into Crazy-ack, Stasiak, and Meat. And
that was an interesting time. Yeah, I mean, The Rock has really influenced my day-to-day life. I still do call people jabronis on a daily basis. Like, I called my mother a jabroni earlier today.
Wow.
She gets it. She knows I'm a huge wrestling mark, so it's cool. No, but so you eventually started training for a little bit, right?
Yeah, it was my goal. So I was in this backyard wrestling federation, the HCW, as you mentioned. I was Chris Sharp, and I had this pact with one of my buddies, one of the fellow wrestlers, that when we were done with high school and we got into college, we were going to go to wrestling school together. And he didn't keep up his end of the bargain, but I did. I trained for a couple months. I was driving from my college town into Toronto. I was training at a wrestling school called Squared Circle. Angelina Love was there training at the time. Tracy Brooks was stopping by. I think she had just finished her training a couple of years before, but she was there at the school. It's just a lot, though. Like, it takes a full commitment to be a pro wrestler, and it takes a full commitment to the training to make it happen. I mean, most schools are 4 days a week. And to try to balance college and a job and drive an hour each way to wrestling school, it's like something's got to give. And like wrestling needs to be the number one priority.
Yeah, man. I remember when I was 17, I wrestled amateurly in high school. So the season was over. I went to a wrestling show. Shout out All Pro Wrestling in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they had a thing where you pay $50 for a tryout, and whoever did the best, they would win. It was the best 3 hours of my life. Yeah, man, got to run the ropes, take a bump, and cut a promo. I loved everything about it. It was so inspiring for me. But you eventually just chose college over wrestling school. Did you ever think about dabbling back into that?
It just didn't make sense because after college, I immediately got into broadcasting. I was very fortunate to get a job right after I graduated, and once again, it came down to what's the priority here. And for me, it was, putting all my efforts into my TV career and trying to make that, work. And I'm super fortunate that I did. I'm really glad that I put in the time and effort. Like my first job was an internship. That was an hour drive away from my parents' house where I was living after college, 60 miles driving each way. And I lived in Toronto, so, some of that was in the snow, when winter came around.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that hard work and dedication and passion that I had I'm just a passionate person. Like I put all of myself into whatever I'm doing. And at that time it was broadcasting, and it couldn't be anything else. So I remember I did a story about 2.5 years into my broadcast career. I was working in Vancouver at the time. I was hosting a show called 969 on MTV2. And we did I sought this out. I looked for any wrestling school that was in town, and I went and I did a story about wrestling school. And the guy said, if you ever want to come train here, I'll give you the drop-in rate. You can come by as much as you want or as little as you want, $25 a month. And I'm like, oh my God, I totally would do that, but the hours just didn't work out. Wrestling school is, it takes a lot of dedication to do it. I just couldn't do it. So super glad to be on this side of things as a ring announcer, as now an interviewer, and I'm glad to kind of be able to dabble in it and also still be a fan at the same time.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. So I started watching your stuff about 2014. It was that red carpet interview you did with CM Punk a couple months after he left WWE. That was the first time I'd ever saw you, and then I clicked the subscribe button immediately. So
Thank you.
I've been down for 5 years now, man.
Wow.
I really just watched your channel grow and grow and grow. And how did you get your first wrestling interview?
Well, when you work for a TV station, it's relatively speaking easy. Raw, SmackDown, Impact, whatever was coming to town. and I reached out and said, can I do an interview? So it was actually 2007 was my first ever interview. I was working on that show in Vancouver, and we're always looking for stories, always looking for interesting interviews. And I saw that WWE was coming to Vancouver for, I think it was just a house show. And they said, Bobby Lashley's going to be in town a week before doing interviews. And I'm like, I'll do anything. I'll come in early, whatever I need to do. And I did, in fact, come in an hour early, did my interview with Bobby Lashley, which, as I look back on now, is like not a good interview at all. But, we all start somewhere. I'm actually in the process of getting that digitized from a DV cam tape, which is a tape format they don't even use anymore. I mailed this away to get digitized, and I'm actually going to upload this on my channel just to show people that, we all start somewhere. Not only do I look horrible and the interview's horrible, but, it's grown into something. So kind of from there, I knew that any station I went to or any city I was in, WWE would be friendly to doing interviews with the local TV station. And we were only airing 10, 15, 20 seconds of the interview, them going, come to SmackDown tonight. It's the best show in town. Tickets start at $15. That's what you'd air on TV for the general audience to appreciate. But I was asking all these questions that I cared about as a fan. And I'm like, other people need to see this. If I cared about this, other people would care about this too. So then I just started posting the raw interviews to my YouTube channel, just thinking it has to live somewhere.
Absolutely.
Other fans can appreciate this. And I think I first started doing that in 2011. And it very, very slowly grew from there.
Yeah. So, since Bobby Lashley was your first interview for wrestling, what do you think about the way he's been booked since he's been back in WWE?
I feel like he's had the booking with a lot of people, or the same type of booking that a lot of people have had. Very excited when they return, and then they don't really have a place for them, so they kind of fall by some low to mid card, And it's just it's too bad because Bobby Lashley is a beast. And Bobby Lashley, I actually said this, I don't want to take anything away from Kofi Kingston or Kofi Kingston's run, but if you show a picture of Kofi Kingston to someone who's not a wrestling fan, they go, oh, that guy's the champion? Okay. And I know, congratulations to Kofi, living his lifelong dream and becoming the champion and becoming the first ever African-American champion. But Bobby Lashley would have made way more sense as the first ever African-American champion to me. That's a guy who looks the part. That's the guy who also has a story, not unlike Kofi. He's been in the business forever. I would have liked to have seen Bobby Lashley get a serious title run.
Yeah, because, here's the thing. People crap on Impact for the way it's been run for the last several years, but he was a beast in Impact. He had a great title run, a couple of them, and I thought, oh my God, that's going to translate over here to WWE, and then, Roman has to go over. So it's...
I feel like unfortunately WWE has this, obviously, a hatred against Impact, and I feel like if someone has come from Impact over to WWE, they have a stank on them. They have the Impact stank on them. There's nothing against them. AJ's obviously broken through that, but look how many people were so good at Impact. Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Eric Young.
EC3.
And then EC3. And then they come over to WWE, and they're treated in the way that they are. And AJ's really been the only person that's been able to break through.
Absolutely. I thought he was going to be buried when he came in, but he's had a hell of a career there. So we're going to see what's going to go on with that. So about your wrestling interviews, I want to talk to you about one like Dolph Ziggler. I know you're good friends with, and if you guys are in the same vicinity, you text him hey, can you do this real quick? So does he just do it and you just upload it, or does that have to go to WWE to get the clearance for stuff like that?
It depends. I have an interview set up with Ziggler in 2 weeks. SmackDown's coming to Miami in 2 weeks. I reached out to WWE and said, who's available to do interviews? And they said, it's Dolph Ziggler. And I said, all right. So I texted Dolph. I said, hey, did you know I'm doing an interview with you in 2 weeks? He's like, oh, well, I guess you are then. So I think that the rule would be that it has to go through WWE, but I think that some people like Ziggler, and I had the same agreement with The Miz for a long time, that they're just happy to do it. I have the same agreement with Johnny Gargano. They're not going to say anything bad, and I think the WWE trusts them to be able to do that.
Cool. So does that kind of go with AEW as well? I know you just interviewed the Young Bucks. I'm looking forward to hearing that one. I mean, I know they're the executive vice presidents, but someone like, I know you interviewed Jungle Boy. Does that have to get cleared with like Tony Khan and the Bucks and Cody, or?
I think that I think AEW is still trying to figure out all of that and like how that all works. The Young Bucks, yes, did go through AEW, but like Jungle Boy, I just reached out to him and we made that happen. Luchasaurus, same thing. So I don't know how this is gonna. I hope it continues this way. I hope I can just text Luchasaurus and make these interviews happen. Same with Jimmy Havoc. I just reached out to him and said, "Hey, can we do this?" And he said, "Sure." I think that's probably the way it goes more often. That's how it is with Ring of Honor guys. That's how it is with Impact guys. It's certainly how it is with any independent wrestler. So I would hope that it continues to go this way.
Yeah, no, I just spoke to Jungle Boy this past Friday at an APW show. He gave you a lot of high praise, man.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Him and TJP, they were both there. I was talking to them about your interview with them. They said a lot of nice things. So you're really doing it, man.
Oh, wow. And that's so surreal to hear, Because it's funny, like you do these interviews kind of in a bubble. You do them, it's like you and that person and a camera, and you don't really think about like, where it's going to go. You kind of do it in a vacuum. And it's cool that like these interviews have been able to touch some people, been able to inspire people, inspire them to chase after whatever they want in their life. Or, I've had a lot of people message me and say, your interviews got me back into wrestling. And it's like, that's amazing. Like that's the highest praise I think possible. Like I'm just putting them out there because I'm a big wrestling fan and I want to ask these wrestlers the questions that I want to ask them.
Yeah, man, I know like your interview style has already influenced me because before when I'd interview a wrestler, it'd be boom, 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 boom. Like my first one was Chris Masters. That's how that interview went, just question after question. Now I've kind of incorporated more of just because yours are so conversational. That's what I've incorporated in mine, and I've noticed that the content's gotten better. So thank you for that, man.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I never think of them as interviews. I think of them as conversations. And if you were to run into someone at a party or at a wedding, or you ran into someone you hadn't seen at a grocery store, you wouldn't just bang off a bunch of points and a bunch of questions. You'd have a conversation. You would say something, they would say something, and it would kind of keep going like that. So for me, I just looked at the people who were in broadcasting that I looked up to the most. I was actually a big Joe Rogan fan before Joe Rogan ever had a podcast.
Really?
I loved watching him on Fear Factor. I loved his stand-up. Like, we're talking 15-ish years ago. I was such a big fan of his style. I loved that he wasn't like a host because I grew up in the era of, Ryan Seacrest is amazing, but he's a host, and I would love to have the career that Ryan Seacrest has, and he makes it look so damn easy, which is amazing. But I love that Joe Rogan just, makes it seem like he's talking to the camera like the camera's his friend. He's talking to the person he's interviewing as if they're his friend. And it just makes it so much more organic that way.
Yeah, so do you have any other people you've really looked up to besides Joe Rogan that have been in the interview entertainment scene?
There's an interviewer in Canada. I guess he's a TV host in Canada named George Strombolopoulos. And if anybody is, it's a funny name if you don't know him, but he's like insanely famous in Canada. So any Canadians that are listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about with Strombo, they call him, George Strombolopoulos. And I always just loved his style of interviewing. It's just like was having a conversation. And if you have to get to a point, you get to that point when it makes sense to get to that. I think that's the biggest thing I've realized. I write out a lot of like the main points I want to hit on in an interview. But if what I thought would be the second question now ends up being the sixth question, or maybe I don't ask it at all, I think that's okay. And it's okay to kind of just roll with the punches. And the biggest comment I see on my YouTube videos is you actually let the person talk. And it's like, yes, of course. Like, I've invited this person onto my platform so that I can hear the answers that they're going to give me. And unfortunately, especially in the wrestling world, there's too many hosts in the wrestling world and podcasters that ask a question but then can't wait to give their input on it. And that's not how this should work.
Yeah, no, it's about the person you're interviewing. It's not about the interviewer. That's how yes. I've always looked at it.
Like the channel may be called Chris Van Vliet, and I might be the person, the constant throughout all these interviews. I'm in all the videos, but I'm fully aware that you're not clicking on a video to see me. You might like the way that I interview someone, but you're clicking on the interview to see my guest and hear what they have to say. And, I'm so self-aware of that. And being self-aware of that early, I think, really helped me. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are trying to put themselves over. And I'm in the business of putting over the person that I'm talking to as the most important thing. Like, that's priority number one every single time.
Yeah, man. I've been trying to put myself over for years. It's just not happening. I've given up. So we've been mentioning about it. You're from Canada. You're Canadian. Is there anything you miss from Canada that we don't have here in the United States?
Well, poutine's not very popular in the United States.
Yeah.
So I miss that. Obviously, I miss my friends and family. But now I've been in the U.S. for 9.5 years now. There's a restaurant in Canada that I love so much. It's called Swiss Chalet. It's a rotisserie chicken restaurant. It's a chain. There's nothing really special about it, but they have this sauce there that you dip the chicken into. And every time I go home, I make my parents take me right to Swiss Chalet from the airport. I don't care what time it is. It could be 10 in the morning. We're going to Swiss Chalet.
So is there anything that you wish the U.S. had that Canada has?
Well, I guess if you could have Swiss Chalet, that'd be amazing.
I'd love to.
And America has every chain restaurant possible. And I love that about the United States. Like, when I first moved here, I went to, Applebee's every single day and, Steak and Shake. And I love Golden Corral. I love me some Texas Roadhouse. I love American chains. And we don't have a lot of these in Canada. So that's why when I first moved to the U.S., I was, eating out at new restaurants every single night, because I was just oh my God, tell me all about I'm trying to think, Cheesecake Factory. We didn't have Cheesecake Factory in Canada until recently. So yeah, I wish that you guys now included Swiss Chalet into this mix.
Yeah, man, I was at StarCast this year, and I was standing in some meet and greet line, and I was talking to this guy who's from Canada, and he was saying, yeah, man, we really envy you guys, and he was just telling me about all the stuff that America has. I'm like, do you not see who our president is? I was just but,
it is true though that when Canadians come to the U.S., they're just you're just blown away by all the options you have for food.
Yeah,
and American food portions are very large compared to probably anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I've been to Canada once, but I was like a baby just passing through. I'd love to go for a vacation, really just explore Toronto, because I'm a big Degrassi fan. I'd love to, Drizzy, shout out. And then you guys got the title this year? Yeah.
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, no,
you're not far from Vancouver. You could drive to Vancouver.
That's a possibility, man.
Vancouver's the best city in the world.
Yeah. After the Warriors lost, I posted a Canadian flag, and I basically heel turned on the Bay Area, and I might have to move to Canada now. It's not good, man.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
I got some hate mail.
Welcome you.
I got some hate mail.
I'll make you an honorary Canadian.
Dude, I would love that. I would love to be Canadian. So let's talk about your podcast. In the process of us talking about making this interview happen, one of my questions was, when are you going to start a podcast? And then you just started one. So, because I was always like, man, these interviews are so good, he should just have a podcast with these things. When did you just decide to start a podcast?
So the reason I didn't have a podcast earlier is I didn't want to take any of the focus away from YouTube. I figured I didn't want to split my audience, even if it was splitting it 10%. I just didn't want to split my audience. I wanted to focus all my views, all my subscribers on YouTube. And it took me a while to realize that the audience on a YouTube channel is very different from the audience on a podcast. So I was talking with my friend, his name's Ferb. He's an awesome guy, and he's helped me so much with my podcast because he has a podcast of his own. And I was talking to him about making this happen. And he's like, dude, just do it. And if it doesn't work, then, just stop doing it. And the response has been so amazing. My podcast, as we record this today, is 2 weeks old. And the response has been amazing. Everyone that's been giving me these reviews and everyone that's been subscribing, it's been really amazing. And the cool thing about this is it's pretty awesome watching this grow from the ground up. I can now post an interview and not even tweet about it, and at least someone's going to listen to it because there's a handful of subscribers right now. And that's been a really cool thing. And I never imagined that this could even be a possibility. So it's cool now that people tell me, oh yeah, I listened to your interview, which is new verbiage to me because it's always been, I watched your interview. And I was just trying to make it an option because I get that. My interviews are 30, 40, sometimes 50 minutes long. I get that you can't watch a YouTube video for that entire time sometimes. So I just wanted to make it an option that you could listen to it wherever you are, whenever you want to listen to it. So it's been really cool, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to plug that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And what I really like about your your podcast and your YouTube channel, everybody does the week-to-week coverage of WWE, and now when AEW starts on TV, you don't do that, and that's what separates you from the rest. And I really like that.
And I have no plans to do that. I don't want to do that. First of all, I don't have the time to watch Raw or SmackDown live. Sometimes I'm either watching it on DVR or watching it on Hulu or something. Like, I'm on TV till 8 o'clock. Then I drive home. So I miss the first half hour of Raw. So that's part of it. I also don't want to, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not a WWE fan or an AEW fan or Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact, Lucha Underground, whatever. I'm a wrestling fan. And I don't ever want to, and I think, unfortunately, when you review the product week to week, people tend to be negative when they do that. And they tend to talk about just the bad things that happen instead of focusing on some of the good things that are happening. Is Raw good every week? No. Is Raw terrible every week? Also no. And I think that too many people in these review shows just harp on all the bad stuff that's happening. And I'm such a positive person, and I live my life with the focus on the positive things because I'm a firm believer that what you focus on is how you're going to feel. And I certainly do not want to focus on a whole bunch of negativity. So I'm certainly staying away from doing the week-to-week thing because there's enough people out there that are doing it, and they're doing a great job at it, and I want them to continue doing it, and I'll do what my strengths are.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be as positive on the podcast as possible, but if there's something I think is just not good, I'm gonna let the people know, But let's talk about StarCast Double or Nothing weekend. I was there, and I know you were there. I actually saw you, but you ran off, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you. I was like, oh man, I wanted to tell him how much I appreciate his work. You and Alicia Toot. I know she was there also. I'm a big fan of hers as well.
Yeah.
So first of all, StarCast, what'd you think of the convention?
I love StarCast. That was really cool walking around there. And StarCast is a little bit different from any other wrestling convention just because it's on a much bigger scale. So many big names there. And then you've got the all the other stuff that's going on around it, like the press conference and the weigh-ins and the live Q&As. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I wasn't there for very long because I was doing a lot of interviews that weekend, but the time I did spend there was really cool, and it was. It blows me away that the reach that these YouTube videos have, and it was so cool walking around StarCast and people were talking to me about my interviews and snapping photos, and it was just like we were in wrestling heaven, man. That weekend was like wrestling heaven in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it was honestly the best weekend of my life. But I want to talk about one of the interviews you did during StarCast weekend. The MJF interview was absolutely hilarious. Him ordering the omelet and trying to feed you some, it was all great.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, it was something.
So, going behind the curtain here, what's MJF like off camera?
Oh, that's what he's like. Yeah. No, it's... People think this is a gimmick. People think MJF's playing this character, and maybe he turns it up maybe he's at a 9.5 the rest of the time, and he just turns it up an extra, half a notch. Oh, yeah. It's... what you see is what you get with him, and... I asked him if there was anything that he didn't want to talk about, and he's like, no, whatever. Let's just do it. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I had prepared for some questions. I might as well have just thrown them out because whatever we talked about didn't really end up happening.
I mean, it was highly entertaining, like I said.
Oh, yeah, it's entertaining. And people ask me about it all the time, and it's like, yeah, I mean, if you ever see MJF, if you ever try to take a picture with him or try to have a conversation with him, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
I love it. So, I mean, what do you think
if you ask him for a photo, his response will probably be something along the lines of, yeah, you got $5? Yeah.
That old carny mentality, I like it. No, but I want to talk to you about, Jesus, I lost my place. Yeah, so, all your wrestling interviews, you have different questions that you prepare, but what's the one interview that you weren't really a fan of, and maybe it's never aired?
Oh, I haven't had any that haven't aired.
Really?
Um, well, I guess for technical reasons, I had an interview with Kevin Nash where the something happened with the audio and the mic wasn't plugged in correctly to the camera or whatever the deal was, and we were halfway home from Orlando, and it's about a 3-ish hour drive back to where I live, and I went to look at the interview, and there was no audio.
Oh,
So it was a great interview with Kevin Nash that I wish I could have put on my channel. So that's one, and like that had nothing to do with the content of the interview. It had nothing to do with me or Kevin. It was just purely bad luck, and that kind of pushed me to get better audio. And I think that, like I was saying earlier, audio is better. Audio is more important than video, I think, when it comes to YouTube videos.
Absolutely. So going back to Double or Nothing, it was the greatest wrestling show I've ever been to in my life. I've never been to a Mania, but that was awesome. So where does that rank for you among the wrestling shows you've been to?
It was pretty special for me because of everything it meant. It was the first ever AEW show. It sold out super quickly. The fact that we were there all weekend long in Vegas, surrounded by all these wrestling fans. The fact that we did these press scrum interviews after, which was a brand new thing. I'd never been part of a press scrum for wrestling. I'd done them for sports. I'd done them on red carpets before with celebrities, but I'd never done them in wrestling. So it was just really special. And if they had the year-end rankings right now, there's no question that Dustin and Cody's match of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
If something ends up beating Dustin and Cody for match of the year, I can't wait to see that match. Whatever match that ends up being, if there's another match, can't wait to see that. So it's up there, man. It's hard to equate it to. I've been to some great WWE shows. I went to a Lucha Underground show that blew my mind. I've been to TNA pay-per-views that were very good. I mean, it's definitely the best AEW show I've been to.
Yeah.
I've been to 2 AEW shows. It's the best AEW show I've been to.
And you're going to Fight for the Fallen this weekend?
Yeah, I'm hoping to go to every AEW event. They give a lot of access to me as a media member to do interviews. So if they're going to keep doing that, I'll keep going.
Yeah, man. Double or Nothing. I've never been that emotional about a wrestling event in my life, so it was really special. But talking about AEW, how successful do you think they're going to be on TNT?
It's going to be really interesting. And I was saying this for a long time before they announced the TV contract. I said, a TV contract's one thing, but it needs to be on a station that people have heard of. Like, Impact is on TV. It's on a national channel. It's just, it's on a channel that you haven't heard of until you have to go look up which channel Impact's on. Although, Impact was on Spike for a long time. I think that I think that unfortunately people are going to judge it off the first couple weeks and make their judgment one way or the other about it. It'll be way easier and certainly make more sense to have this conversation a year or two from now, because I think that there's still a lot of people out there that don't know what AEW is. I mean, they've only had 2 shows. They've only existed as a company for 6 months right now. They've got a lot of growing to do, and it's a super exciting time to be a wrestling fan because we get to watch this growth happen. We've already seen what AEW, the effect it's had on WWE after just having 2 shows. Like, WWE programming has continued to get better, I guess, over the last just couple of weeks, because they're starting to see AEW as a threat. So, look, man, I'm just excited to see what happens in the fall. And the fall's a big time for both big companies. WWE's moving to SmackDown, moving to network television on Fox. It was moving SmackDown to Fox. That's huge. And AEW going to be on TNT. That's also huge. So I'm just excited to see where this all goes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the current WWE products. Now, I thought after Double or Nothing, I did my recap, and I was like, Vince better watch his ass. He needs to hit it home the next Monday. And he didn't. And I was like, what? Why not? And then I guess he was worried about other things because, Vince McMahon's a maniac. But, he's brought in Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff to be executive producers of Raw and SmackDown. What's your thoughts on that, first of all?
Well, there's not a single wrestling fan that looks at those two names and goes, "Oh, really? You hired them?" Both of them are the best possible people to do these jobs. And there's not a single wrestling fan on planet Earth that's going, "I can't believe you hired Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff." We've already seen some changes with Raw last week. I understand that Bischoff isn't writing for SmackDown yet, so that'll be exciting when that stuff starts to happen. I think it's the right move at the right time. And as we lead into the fall and as we lead into AEW doing this week in and week out, it's going to be really interesting to see what's happened. WWE's already seemingly starting to go away from the PG era. And that was where we had our best wrestling, is when they weren't doing PG stuff.
That's very true. Corey Graves dropping that S-bomb. I had to do a double take. I'm like, oh my God, was that a mistake? And I guess not.
There's no way that was a mistake.
It's gonna be interesting, man. So I hear that you're not a fan of the brand split.
Yeah, I'm not at all.
Explain that.
I just think it's so stupid that it's all the same company. Let's not pretend it's not the same company. And I've always hated as a fan when they go, "What's this guy doing here? He's from SmackDown." It's like, yeah, but it's the same company. I think the thing that I really don't like about it is when they first did the brand split and there was one champion and the champion was on both shows, it made sense to me. But try to explain to someone who's not a wrestling fan why there's two world champions for one company. And if you try to explain this, it doesn't make any sense. You're explaining this to a person who's not a wrestling fan and you say, "This guy's the champion, but his belt's red, and he only wrestles on Monday. And this other guy is also the champion, but his belt's black, and he wrestles on Tuesdays." It's like, what? Which guy's the champion?
Yeah, I don't know. This current incarnation of this wild card thing or whatever's going on, I've not really been a fan of. I am a fan of the brand split because, back in that original one, you had, like, this top SmackDown 5 with, like, Guerrero, Benoit, and Edge and all those other guys. It felt like a kind of a little war inside WWE. And I loved that stuff, but, I hear rumblings that the brand split may be coming back and coming back hard, so I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I get why they have it. They have too much talent to showcase on just one show. I get that. It makes sense to go, all right, this half goes to one show and this half goes to the other show. Why not instead just cut the roster down and get rid of house shows, and then it would make sense to have Raw and SmackDown. Like, the other thing I don't like about the brand split is if there's someone that you really, really like on SmackDown, you're probably less inclined to watch Raw now. And vice versa. Whereas if both guys, like back in the day when SmackDown first came around, you saw them on both shows. You saw them on Monday, and then you saw them on Thursday, and the storyline just continued. And I think that I just preferred that style. It just made more sense to me.
Yeah, the original wild card rule.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the 24/7 championship?
It's turned into something really entertaining. But I think that we'd be remiss to forget the reaction that title first got when Mick Foley unveiled it.
Yeah, man.
And I said this to Cody. I said, it was the week of Double or Nothing was like, it was coincidental, but it was the best possible time for AEW to start their show. Brock Lesnar had just won Money in the Bank, and everyone was super upset about that. 2 days, or the next day on Raw, they revealed the 24/7 title, and everyone kind of rolled their eyes, like collectively rolled their eyes at how ugly the title was. It's turned into something really entertaining, but I think the thing that I'm really fearful with this is, how many times has Truth won it now? Like 9 times?
Yes.
And the title is 6 weeks old? So are you and I going to have the same conversation a year from now, and our Truth is the 97-time champion? Like,
probably,
And I think that just kind of takes away from the other championships. Like, if you're going to say that this is a championship, and the U.S. title and the Intercontinental and, of course, the World titles are also championships, it doesn't seem like they should be, in the same, like, they shouldn't be on the same level. And I get that they're not, but it's going to be weird if this storyline continues with Drake Maverick and with R-Truth. Truth's going to be like a ridiculous number champion, and it's just not going to make any sense to us.
Yeah, he's running for that Flair record, the fictional one or the real one, whichever one you want to believe. Yeah, but I don't know, the 24/7 title drop in that week, it was hilarious. I was at the evening with Cody and the Bucks, and Nick Jackson was like, our titles aren't going to be green, and I popped huge for that. That was funny. But I don't know. The title has grown on me. Truth is absolutely hilarious with it. So I don't know.
It's basically, it's, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. It's the jobber title. It's the what do we do with these guys title. Like, all the people that are always chasing truth around are like the guys you haven't seen on TV, like doing anything else but the 24/7 title.
I don't know. Maybe Pete Dunne just needs to come back and hold that thing hostage.
Bring it on.
Give it some real credibility, But what other things do you think WWE could fix now that AEW's on the horizon and they're taking shots?
The first thing I would do is I would start Raw with a wrestling match. That's the first thing I would do. I would start every Raw with a wrestling match and not a promo. I think that just makes sense. That's just logical. If they were going head to head, which one would you rather watch? Would you rather watch some people talk for 20 minutes, or would you rather watch a wrestling match for 20 minutes?
I'm a fan of the in-ring action.
I think we all are. We're wrestling fans, right? And Tony Khan even said this at Fyter Fest. He said he wants to have it be more like 90% wrestling and 10%, other stuff. And I think that we all kind of go, that's awesome. That's the way it should be.
Well, speaking of Fyter Fest, what did you think in the moment when Sean Spears hit Cody with that chair?
I thought that's a damn hard chair shot.
Yeah, man. I mean, everybody's become a CTE expert all of a sudden online after that one. I mean, what was the general feel in the crowd like when that happened?
Well, I think it was there's Sean Spears. We haven't seen him since the Battle Royal. Like, I was excited that Sean Spears is getting, obviously he's going to get a push out of this. I think it was just like, in the moment, we were just like, damn, that was a hard chair shot. And it took probably a good 30 or 40 seconds for my buddy to go, oh, he's bleeding. And I looked at his face, I'm like, no, he's not. And he's like, no, the back of his head. And I'm like, oh, that's not the way. That didn't go right. And I talked to the Bucks about that in my interview I just did yesterday. The interview is going to drop on Thursday, but they walked me through exactly what that chair shot was supposed to look like. And it was very different from what we saw in the pay-per-view.
Okay, well, it was just probably a freak accident that happened. But
well, Nick had said after Fyter Fest it was a gimmicked chair. And I said to him in the interview, I'm like, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I haven't heard the term gimmicked chair. So tell me what a gimmicked chair is. And he explains in great detail exactly what it was supposed to be like. And he said that Tony Khan wasn't a big fan of the chair shot to the head to begin with, even with this gimmicked idea that you'll see when they explain this. And then after it happened, I guess Tony was really pissed.
Okay, all right. Well, it's interesting, because now knowing what we know about concussions and CTE, it was a little cringy to watch. I'm not gonna lie, but I watched your post match or post. I've never seen it in wrestling, so I can't even describe what it is. But the interviews after the show's over, and Tony said we're not going to see stuff like that, and so I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. I want these wrestlers to be safe and protected as much as possible, given what they do.
I also think that was him, the businessman, saying, if anyone from TNT is watching this, don't worry, because he made it very clear that he's like, we might push the envelope on pay-per-view events. And this is technically a pay-per-view event. That's what he said. This was presented as a pay-per-view event in the UK. He said, but this absolutely will not be the case on TNT. So I think he was basically saying, hey, TNT executives, don't worry.
All right. Keeping with the AEW talk now, WWE has way too many championships. How many titles do you think AEW should have?
I think pretty positively they will have a world champion. They will have a women's champion. They will have men's and women's tag team, and then maybe like a mid-card belt. So 5?
Really? I was thinking 4 would be the perfect crescendo for a number of championships.
But then if you're not at the top and you're not in a tag team, what are you wrestling for?
I mean, the women have the women's title. Then, the guys, they have like an IC level championship or something.
So you're basically saying, yeah, but then you got a world, you got tags, men's and women's tags. You're already at 3. and then probably have a women's champion. Then you're already at 4. So then you have to have like some sort of mid card, like an IC title for the men, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, or they've done some partnerships like AAA. Maybe they get one of their titles in for like a sequence of matches or something like that. I don't know, but
I actually wouldn't be surprised if they don't have a women's tag team championship at first, because I don't think they have a lot of women's tag teams right now.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock against them. It's just they don't have a lot of women's tag teams right now. So if they were to have a women's tag team championship, they would have to bring in some more teams.
Thoughts on the design of the AEW World Title?
I love the vintage style of it. I love that it looks a lot like the IWGP title. I love that look. Cody actually showed me pictures of it before it launched, like before they announced it. He showed me when I did that interview in his hotel room a couple days before Double or Nothing. I said, "Can I ask you about the title? I don't want to like put you on the spot." He's like, "Yeah, of course, man. It's awesome. You want to see it?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he pulls out his phone, starts scrolling through some photos. I'm like, "Oh man, that's awesome."
Yeah,
I love that it's a big, chunky belt too.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks beautiful. And the crowd, when they unveiled it, we were like, "Thank God it's not green."
Yeah.
My little section, yeah. So I mean, going with like the women's division, I think Nyla Rose should be the first women's champion.
Yeah, it's either like you're either going to go in one direction or the other with this. It's either going to be Nyla Rose or I think it's going to be Britt Baker, because Britt Baker's getting a real push here too, I think.
I don't know, man. I think Nyla, whenever they drop the title, I think Brandy Rhodes said that it's going to happen at All Out. They're going to unveil the championship, have Nyla win, go on a year-long tear, and have Kylie Ray beat her. Kind of like a Johnny Gargano female babyface, you know?
I don't know if Nyla can go on a year-long tear when Awesome Kong's around.
Dude, she beats her too. Just
Yeah.
runs through it.
That is going to be a hell of a match, because obviously that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I popped when Awesome Kong came out. I did not expect that at all.
Me neither. I popped when Bret Hart came out. I'm like, really? This is amazing.
That was great. I think Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus should be their first tag team champions. You know, because do something new, fresh. I dig it.
I think that they'll be in the tag team tournament. Actually, I'm pretty positive they will be based on what the Bucks told me in our interview. But I think that your first tag team champion, I honestly feel it's probably going to be the Bucks. Because Cody's not going to be the first ever champion. We're aware of that. It's not going to be Kenny. So I think that, at least 2 of the EVPs will hold the championship. So if it's not the Bucks, I think it's going to be Best Friends, maybe SCU. I think it's going to be a well-known tag team. And as far as we're concerned as AEW fans, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy have never had a match together, in an AEW program.
True.
Yeah.
I am a fan of the shock and awe and putting the title on people you wouldn't expect, like the time Jinder Mahal won the WWE title. I'm a fan of stuff like that. But so
we also can't discount the Lucha Bros.
Oh, that's very true. But there was.
And I could see that happening because the Lucha Bros have lost. Then the Bucks have gone over twice now. So I would think that we're going to see the Bucks, the Lucha Bros, Best Friends, or SCU. 2 of those 4 teams are going to be in the finals, I would think.
Absolutely. And then who do you think's winning at All Out? Hangman Page or Chris Jericho?
This is really interesting because this could believably go either way, and I think it would make sense. Hangman obviously makes sense as the new face. He's been endorsed by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Obviously, Hangman is going to be the champion at some point one day if he doesn't win at All Out. Chris Jericho going into television, a well-known face, someone who'd been on TNT before, also makes a ton of sense. It makes a lot of money sense, too. It's a good way for Tony Khan to say to his investors in TNT or the network heads, hey, this guy, Chris Jericho, has already been on your channel before. Viewers are already aware of who he is. You could send him to do a press anywhere in the world and people will know who he is. So I think it could go either way. If I had to put my money on it today, just for logical reasons only, I would think that Jericho wins.
Absolutely. The guy who's been on top of the wrestling business for 25 years, it just makes absolutely perfect storyline and business sense. So I have a couple kind of rapid fire questions. These are the general favorites when it comes to talking to a wrestling fan. Favorite tag team of all time?
Hardy Boys. I loved Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb, and it was my finishing move as a backyard wrestler.
All right, the Chris Sharpton Bomb. I dig it. All right, favorite wrestler of all time? Let me guess, Dwayne. Oh, there you go. That's
the most electrifying man in all of entertainment.
I dig it, man. Favorite gimmick of all time?
I don't know, actually. Wow, my favorite. Like, does it have to be gimmicky or just like, favorite personality?
Personality, character, whatever you want, man.
I think it would have to be Stone Cold. I mean, and that kind of came out of nowhere too. Like that shot up to the top, and Stone Cold still 20 plus years later is probably one of the best characters in wrestling, period.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, favorite finishing move of all time?
Of all time, I really when I saw the Swanton Bomb for the first time, I went, what he rotated the last second? Jeez. And now everyone does the Swanton Bomb. It's probably not even impressive to you, being born in 1996.
I mean, I've seen every flippy do imaginable. I'm a fan of like simple moves still. Like, I don't know if you know who Jacob Fatu is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he can do a handspring moonsault. That's impressive to me for a guy his size.
Yeah.
So
I loved the high flyers growing up. AJ Styles in TNA was the best wrestler in the world. Like 06, 07, 08, 05, 06, 07, 08, like, was amazing. And what's his move? The spiral tap?
Yeah, he used to do that. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and then when he went to WWE, I'm like, yes, we're going to see the spiral tap, and we're going to do that, see where he does that backflip into the reverse DDT. And he doesn't even do his same moveset from TNA, which is actually pretty disappointing.
I know. I was a big fan of the Fosbury flop, where he would run and then just at the last second clear the top rope and do a backflip. I popped for that every time, but, I saw this interview with him, and he said he has to maintain what he got, so he has to kind of cut some of that out of the arsenal, which I understand. He's older. Yeah,
makes sense. He wants to, be able to keep doing this for the rest of his contract.
Yeah. All right, so I know you're Canadian, but Brett or Sean?
Oh, that's a Brett for sure. Yeah, I think Brett's a better wrestler. I don't think there's any argument there. I know you're wearing a DX shirt right now, but
I'm a Sean guy.
Sean, I think you can break it up like this. In ring, I don't know if there really is anyone better than Bret Hart. Like, he really is the best there ever was. And all the other things, best there is, best there was, best there will be. But Shawn Michaels' character is obviously, more entertaining than Bret Hart's character.
Yeah, I can give it that. I mean, plus I'm a big fan of the selling and overselling of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it, man. Well, I think that does it for the interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, Philip.
Hey, man. Hey, you're welcome to come on the Bulletcast anytime. If you ever just want to shoot the breeze about the week that was, man, just let me know, and I'll have you on with my co-host. And yeah, man.
Well, no, thank you, and keep doing what you're doing. You're way ahead of the podcast game versus me, so keep doing what you're doing.
You have more followers than I do, though. So.
Well, that's just because I'm older. I've been doing this longer.
Yeah. No, but I think we are starting to build a nice little fan base. I'll go to like an indie show and somebody will yell out Bulletcast to me. I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on, man? So that's
awesome.
It's coming, man. Do you wanna plug your stuff, your socials, and everything?
Yeah, it's my name, Chris Van Vliet, VanVliet, and if you could subscribe on YouTube, that'd be awesome. We're getting close to 200,000 subscribers as we speak right now. But I say that vague goals get vague results. So instead of just growing my YouTube channel, I have a very specific goal now that I want to get to 1 million subscribers in the next 2.5 years. So by the end of 2021, I want 1 million subscribers. So I can't do that alone, so I need you to help me out.
Hey, click subscribe, guys. Seriously. I know you started this year wanting 50 interviews. How many have you done so far? Throwing in the bucks.
I just uploaded number 56.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm way ahead of that goal, yeah.
All right, is there a new goal that you have set out?
Yeah, the new goal is 100, which is that's a lofty goal, but if I don't have something to chase after, then so the original goal at the start of the year was 50 wrestling interviews and 200,000 subscribers. Now it's 100 interviews, 250,000 subscribers.
Awesome.
Both are going to be difficult to get, but you got to set big goals to get big results.
Absolutely, man. I know you're interviewing Dolph in a couple weeks. Do you have any more other wrestlers lined up that you want to tell us about?
Well, the Young Bucks interview that I talked about will be dropping on Thursday, and with Fight for the Fallen this weekend, I haven't officially lined up any interviews, but if you see my interview with JR next week, don't be surprised.
Okay.
We're putting the finishing touches on trying to make that happen. And I mean, JR is someone I've looked up to my whole life,
Absolutely.
not just in wrestling, but as a broadcaster. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, JR and the King, met them at StarCast, voices of my childhood.
Same, yeah.
I dig it, man. Well, thank you so much for making this happen, Chris. I've really looked up to you for the past couple years, and I've noticed you've developed a nice little following here in the Bay Area as well. I'll mention your name to somebody, be like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. I saw his interview with so and so." So yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah, man. If you're ever in the Bay Area, hit me up and we'll go have some brewskis or whatever or something. Just chop it up.
I'm down. Yeah, consider that invitation taken.
Hey, there we go, man. All right, hopefully I'll see you in Chicago for All Out. I'm trying to make that trip happen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Chris Van Vliet interview. Chris, thank you so much for making this happen, buddy. Talk to you next time.
You got it. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching my Chris Van Vliet interview. A really nice guy, super chill dude, really easy to talk to. I know, Chris, if you're watching this, I'm stealing your gimmick with the whole post-interview video that you can see if you're watching the video on YouTube, or if you're just listening to the podcast and you could just hear the audio on all of our audio podcasting platforms. But seriously, Chris Van Vliet, thank you so much for doing the interview with me, brother. Really appreciate it. And hey, man, if you ever want to shoot the breeze about the week that was in pro wrestling, you are more than welcome to come on the BC and talk about all that stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. The Podfather is out.
This has been the Bulletcast. Thank you for listening.